Hi there, my name's Charlotte Reeves. I'm from Unleash Education and you've tuned into another editing toolbox video where we show you a quick tip, trick or technique to help make your pet photography editing life easier. Now in this video, I'm going to show you how to rescue a flared out photo. So flare happens when you're shooting with backlight, you're shooting towards the sun, and direct sun actually hits the end glass element of your lens. The light gets in there, it makes the image very low in contrast and also overexposed. So a good way to fix this while you're shooting is to always make sure the end glass element of your lens is shaded. That basically means putting yourself in a position where you're shaded, even though the subject is receiving light on the back of them, you are in the shade. So that's how you avoid that in the first place. But sometimes it just happens. So this image here, this is actually taken about 9 years ago. And you can see from this sequence how it's basically just the first image that's flared out. So you can see it's flared out because it's very low in contrast. The exposure is a lot higher. So even though the exposure settings didn't change between these 4 images, the first image looks like it's much higher in exposure, and that's what the flaring has done. You'll also see some artifacts as well. So down here you can see some little kind of round sort of shapes, little bits of rainbows and sort of strange optical stuff going on. So that's a dead giveaway of flaring. So can we rescue this image? Can we get this image looking good? Can we get the black dog looking black? The answer is yes, we can, and I'm going to show you exactly how. So if we go into edit this image, the first thing that you'll notice is that the histogram shows not very much information in the very dark areas. So the histogram basically gives you the idea that the image is quite overexposed. So we need to take note of that, and we need to get some decent blacks in the image and get some more contrast in the image. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull this black slider down. You'll notice those tones on the histogram coming right down. That makes a big difference to start with. I'm also going to pull the highlights down because there are a lot of really bright tones in the background and I think we can kind of rescue them a little. So definitely we can do that there. I'm going to take the shadows up a little because we don't want to make the blacks too black, and then now it's definitely looking a little cool. So let's just adjust the white balance here. So we want this image looking appropriately warm because it was shot at golden hour. So we definitely need to make it look warm. However, we don't want to retain any color cast in the dog. So those are the basic adjustment sliders. I'm also going to add a bit of clarity, a bit of vibrance, and then I'm going to go down to the tone curve sliders here. And this is where I'm going to also increase contrast. So I'll be taking this dark slider down. See how that really blackens up the dog? I'll take the highlights down a little bit more, take the lights up a little, maybe the shadows just down a touch. Okay, so let's go back up here and have another little tweak. See how we've got a really good range of tones in the histogram here? So we've got detail all the way from the darks to the lights. And if I do a quick before and after here, you'll see how big a difference that those adjustments have made already. So Lightroom does have a bit of a secret weapon for hazy images, and we do actually have a slider here called Dehaze. Now Dehaze, I'm not exactly sure what it does to the image. It does a range of different things in order to address the issues that I've discussed already. So if we take this Dehaze slider up, see how it just adds contrast and it tends to sort of get rid of that hazy sort of feel. So I'm going to take that up a little. And then I also think maybe we don't need to take that black slider down as much. Let's take the exposure up a little. And I think we're getting pretty close to what's going to work here. So far these have all been global adjustments, so adjustments to the whole image. I'm also going to add a couple of masks. So the first one I'll add will be a select subject. Press O to turn the overlay off. And I'm also going to dehaze a little bit here. I'm going to take blacks down, shadows up, whites up a little. That will sort of help to bring back a bit of contrast in the subject. Now you'll notice at this point we are getting quite a bit of red in the subject, red and maybe magenta. We're actually going to go into Photoshop to fix that, but for now we're just going to ignore it. So maybe a little clarity and a bit of texture in the subject, I always think helps to bring out the fur detail, which is quite nice. Now this area down here, I feel like this is starting to block up a little bit, so lack a little bit of detail there. So I might just go back into that mask and then subtract with a brush on 50% density. Nice big brush. And I'm just going to remove a little bit of that adjustment from this area here. So if I turn that adjustment off and on, you'll see it's brought a little bit more contrast and detail to Logan's face here. Another thing I'm going to do just to enhance the background, not necessarily related to the flare, but I'm just going to put a nice big radial gradient in behind here, subtract the subject and increase the haze. So I'm actually adding haze to the background here and warming it up a little bit because I think that really improves the look of the background. Let's turn that off and on again, makes the subject stand out really nicely against the background there. So I think we've got this looking pretty good in Lightroom. I'm just going to go back to the start. So that's the raw file. And those are the changes that I have made. So as you can see, it's really brought out the subject. It's made the black fur look a lot better. So the final thing that we really need to do here is take this into Photoshop and deal with the red color cast. So red color casts are pretty tricky to deal with here in Lightroom, mainly because with the temperature sliders here, you only really have yellow and blue and then green and magenta for the tint. So you don't specifically have red. So it can be a little bit stubborn to get rid of. So let's go into Photoshop. I'll see you there and we'll deal with the red. Right, so here we are in Photoshop. The first thing I'm actually going to do here, just because it's really annoying me, is just get rid of these little bits of sleep in the dog's eyes. I'm just using the spot healing brush tool there. So that was a bit annoying. Now you can really see that this is a red color cast. Now the easiest way to deal with that is to add a hue saturation adjustment layer. So hue saturation adjustment layer there. So it comes with the mask. I only really want to apply this to the fur areas. So I'm just going to fill this with black. So if I make sure that I've got a white brush, so I can just press D to get the default colors, and that puts white as the foreground color in the swatch over here. And press B on the keyboard to select the brush tool, and then just make sure the mask is selected and just paint in on the dog. If you want to actually be able to see what you're doing a little bit better here, you can just press backslash on the keyboard. And then when you're painting into these areas, you can kind of see exactly where you're going. Now I don't have to be absolutely exact with this because it's only going to target a specific range of colors, and those colors actually aren't in the background really. So let's just start off with that, see how we go. So I'll press backslash again. Now for the properties for the hue saturation adjustment layer, we can use the little finger eyedropper thing here. So if we just click on the image and where I can see the color cast and just drag to the left, see how it picks up magentas there? Now if we drag that to the right, you can really see where all the magenta is. So there's definitely magenta in there. So we need to drag that to the left, and then we also need to take the lightness down. That really helps with the appearance of that. Now the next color is red. So I'm going to try and identify where the red is. I think it's about here. Yep, there we go. Selected red, and I'm going to take that down. If we take that the other way, it's really showing us the red in the dog. So let's take that red saturation down and also the lightness down as well. Now let's turn this adjustment layer off and on and see how it's really cleared up that color cast in the dog's fur. So I think that's actually quite good. I don't think there's a lot of color cast in the body here. We could maybe just paint into this area down here as well, into the mask, just to make sure that we're getting rid of it. We don't want to go over where the red collar is because that would take the red out of the collar. This is why we're using a mask for this. And I'm also just going to paint over the area where the little bit of flare is to make it a little bit less noticeable there. So I think Logan's looking a lot better. I do feel like his face still needs more contrast. So I'm going to create a curves adjustment and basically just manipulate this curve here until his face just looks like it's got a bit more contrast in it. And then I'm going to copy that mask from the hue saturation layer onto the curves layer by holding down Option, clicking and dragging. So that's now only applying to his face. So let's zoom out and have a bit of a look here. So it's definitely not looking like a flared out image anymore. We've got some really good color and contrast in Logan's face. I'm just going to do a couple of more little tweaks here. We might even take a little bit more of the red out. Yeah, we don't want to take all the color cast out because that's when things start looking a little bit weird. So this is what it looked like when we brought it in without these adjustment layers, and that's the difference that they make there. So I think that's looking pretty good. I'm going to flatten that and we're all done. See you back in Lightroom for a before and after. So here we are back in Lightroom with the before and after. So on the left, you'll see the raw file, very flared out and very overexposed looking. And on the right, we have the fully edited image that's had some adjustments made in both Lightroom and Photoshop to bring back contrast, bring back some detail, and really get that black fur looking good. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. If you do end up with a flared out image, you now know what you need to do to rescue it. I'll catch you soon for the next editing toolbox video. Until then, see you later.